Well, hey, good morning, gamers. It is July. Hold on. Let me do something. Okay, so I don't know if it happened, but there might have been that mic delay thing. So I just hit the button, reset it. But let's just get this started because it is the 1st of July. New month means nothing really, but hope you guys are having a good Monday. I am Adam Blue, host of the Blue Gamer Bluecast morning show, or anything on this channel really. 30 plus year video game enthusiast. Yeah, all that kind of stuff. What am I talking about? What a weekend. A lot of gaming that I'm going to be talking about. But also on the channel is my interview with David Jaffe. So if you haven't seen it, check that out. It was so much fun talking video games, talking filmmaking. And then like yesterday on his channel, he had a game developer, John Garvin, on. And they just did a deep dive into game development. And it was very interesting. So I tell you, if you're into video game development, video game industry, follow David Jaffe. That interview's on my channel. A link to his channel should be there, right? Did I put it? I'll have to check. Okay. Well, let's get started anyway. Lots to talk about. So, I don't know what it was about this weekend, but I had a lot of time to do a lot of things. I don't know if I'm just getting better at being efficient with time, but I went through and played a lot of games and got a surprise that I'm going to show off here shortly. So it started with Metal Gear Solid 5 Phantom Pain, fellow friend of the channel and actually partner in a lot of things. Midnight Hatter is always bringing this game up in context to interesting game development conversations. And I was like, okay, I need to play it. But you could see I didn't spend any time with it. But hold on, shortly to be continued. And then on the 360, I was like, let me just jump into Symphony of the Night real quick and just mess around with it. And I was like, okay, I'm done. And then I was like, okay, why am I playing all these Genesis games? Well, here's that surprise I was talking about. Let me change the camera. I got myself the brand new RG Cube. I don't know if any of you have heard of this. This is Anbernic's newest device. This thing has been a big deal. And actually, when they first announced this, I was like, this makes the most sense for me to get as a retro handle. I have a few of them. And I feel like right now I don't need any more than this one. This does everything. Not only ergonomically does it just make sense, but it's Android, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, video out, touchscreen. I think Android is the main selling point of this and touchscreen because it allows me to just do a quick setup. Like to get this setup was so fast. And then I got the retro achievement setup, which I'm going to make a video about that. I know I've had people ask me about that. So basically, once I got this up and running and the retro achievements up and running, I wanted to test it out. And so here's an example of, so I was like, okay, first game I'll play, maybe Thunder Force 3. I don't remember the order of the games I played, but, and what's interesting is, yeah, I only played, it doesn't say how much time I played, which is interesting, but I managed to get a bunch of achievements. Thunder Force 3 is one of my favorite Genesis games. I'm just, so used to it, but I love that it's like, wow, I could go back and look at what are some milestones within the game that I'd want to kind of jot down in memory. And so, again, this is why I love this whole retro achievements thing. Then I went into TMNT Hyperstone Heist, another sort of like main Genesis game for me when I was a kid. So again, playing it, I went through, beat the first boss, got the achievements. And then here's the interesting thing, and I brought this up before, and again, I want to do a video on this to explain it to people. Like, then I was playing Adventures of Batman and Robin, and it did not get any of the information. It's because I actually don't have the right ROM. And what do I mean by that? There are so many ROMs out there, but there is, for every game, there's usually like a main ROM that's used by everyone that is sort of what do you call it, crowd approved in terms of, it works the way it needs to, it's named a certain way. So that's another thing. As I'm playing these games that I can hook up to the retro achievements, I need to make sure that I have the right ROM. So that's a whole other aspect to this. All right, then, yeah, I guess I was playing a little more Portrait of Ruin just because I'm still playing, trying to beat it as Richter. Get a little further in that, but I play less since I've kind of primarily done what I want to. Now I want to move on and play other games. So here's where I was getting to with Metal Gear Solid 5. So yeah, I was playing a bunch more on PC. Okay, I don't know if I beat the second or third mission, but here's what I'll say about the game. Considering it came out in 2015, it has amazing mechanics and systems, but the world and the number of options you have in the world is actually limited compared to something like Sniper Elite 5, which is what where I would say Sniper Elite 5 doesn't have as good of controls, doesn't have as good of feeling of Walker Knight. It's fine, but just Metal Gear Solid 5 is so good. I wish they could somehow combine the two games, because I would love to take Snake from Metal Gear Solid 5 and then jump into the Sniper Elite 5 world with the way the maps are laid out, how big they are, how many things you can do. But I don't know. I'll still have to play some more Metal Gear Solid 5. But yeah, I mean, that's just a blind spot in my gaming knowledge of completing each Metal Gear game. All right, and then Adventure Island 2. Actually, that was the first game I played when I got the RG Cube, because the plan was to, mainly the size of the screen is best for like Game Boy Color, stuff like that. So yeah, that worked perfectly. And then Dracula X on Super Nintendo, probably the hardest game of all time. I'm curious what others think, but I do think that is the hardest game of all time. Okay, I think my camera moves by itself, because it's like I have this situated a certain way, and then by the end of what I'm talking about, like I'm over here. I don't know. All right. And then Final Fight on SNES. That's one where like last summer, I spent my time playing through every single Final Fight game. But that was before I had it connected up to Retro Achievements, so now I'm going to go back and do it again with Retro Achievements connected. And then Super Castlevania 4, an excellent, like the best SNES Castlevania, even though Dracula X, there's more to it. I like, in terms of gameplay, Super Castlevania 4 is where it's at. And then here's one, Super Lucky's Tale. This is a game that I've played off and on for years. It's fun. It's just like a Mario. It's I think it's underrated. I'll beat it one of these days. It's kind of fun to just go through and like collect the stars. It's not stars, but it's that thing. And then I actually didn't play Double Dragon Rise of the Great. I launched the game, and then I was like, oh, I didn't mean to launch the game, but it just pops up with everything here. Okay, and then Bloodstained Curse of the Moon. This is one that I haven't beat. It's basically taking that Bloodstained game, the Koji Igarashi Castlevania dude went off, made his own Metroidvania, but then he made classicvania types, Bloodstain, and there's Bloodstain 2, so Curse of the Moon. I was just playing through to try to beat that. And then played some Crazy Taxi 2. And then I was actually setting up Metal Gear Solid on my, through, RetroArch and everything on my PC, because I actually want to start doing a series of playing through very popular games I've never beat. Metal Gear Solid is going to be one of them. I tested everything last night, and I got everything set up so that I could start streaming. I don't know when I'm going to do it. It might just be randomly when I want to play the game. I'll just stream as I'm playing. I don't know the details on that yet. So, yeah, you could see there was a lot I got into over the weekend gaming-wise, but even if you look at the time spent, I didn't really spend a whole lot with any specific individual game. But nevertheless, it was fun because I was, messing around with this thing a little bit. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Yeah, again, the camera is moving. It is. And it's just some weight thing, or I have to like adjust something somewhere. I don't know. I'm like mad at it. Like let me just say, like, I'm angry that the camera just moves on its own. It's like I have no control. I mean, it's not even a big deal. This is just the Monday morning in me. Okay, so moving on. Let me change. No, actually, I was at the right screen. Okay. I just opened a whole bunch of tabs of some interesting news and stuff. What was this one? Okay, we'll do this last. What was this one? Oh, so this is really cool. The implications could be far-reaching. Transformers Cybertron games have been relisted on Xbox and Steam today. Not yet available for purchase. Background, owned by Activision. Now owned by Xbox. Now we're starting to... This is exactly what I wanted to happen. I am so glad it's happening. It's a little slower than I wanted it to, but I can't be too selfish. So that's going to be great that these Transformer games are going to be back up. I'd never played them all. I played some. They're fun. I'm not a big Transformers fan. My favorite one is the... is it Devastation, the one made by Platinum Games? Awesome character action game. Really, really good. So anyway, what could this mean? There's so much more that this could mean. For instance, Activision owns the Deadpool game made by High Moon Studios, which is really good. Nolan North voices Deadpool. It's hilarious. It's fun. And then that X-Men Origins Wolverine game. Would love to have that available too. So I see this happening, that we're going to start seeing all of these older, delisted, unavailable Activision games are probably going to start popping up. I'm glad Microsoft's doing this. This is a big deal to me. I mean, especially considering where we've been now seeing this news pop up of Sony making PS3 games backwards compatible on PS5. Like, that is the thing that people want. They want the library of games. When they want to play a game, they want to know what platform they can go to play it. And I think Microsoft owning Activision is going to be a lot of cool games. Just, they need to get it out there. All right, let's see. What else? That will be for later. Okay, I think this is pretty neat because, so Riven, a sequel to Myst, had a remake come out. And these games are pretty neat. Like, I remember playing them on the PC back in the 90s because it's just the graphics were, like, amazing. But at the same time, I didn't know what I was doing half the time. They were, like, puzzles. But what's interesting is that they made it to where it's playable in VR. And to me, that makes so much sense. Like, this is the Myst, Riven. I got to play Myst again. I haven't played Myst since the 90s. It could be bad. But I would love to play them again, actually, in VR. So it's really cool that it makes sense. I feel like as we go with VR, there's just some things that don't make sense. This makes sense, these types of games. It's almost like I feel like there's a way that VR could have its own genre of games just because of the way it requires you to control it. But no one's really embraced that. It's more of how can we integrate current modern games into VR? And it doesn't always work. That's why Sony is kind of stopped making VR games, but they're making an adapter so you can use PSVR 2 with PC. It's interesting. Very interesting. Okay, what else? I found this interesting. So, you know, I'm into filmmaking a whole lot. Gus Van Sant, filmmaker, it talked about a trilogy of movies that were inspired by the Tomb Raider video games, and I didn't really understand what that meant. I had to kind of read through this. Yeah, I actually read the article. But what was interesting about this is, where was it? Okay, yeah. So basically what they were doing is it was a trilogy of movies that happened to have a lot of scenes like where characters are just talking in the wilderness, and he filmed it specifically to have the camera behind them as they're walking because during this time, he was playing the Tomb Raider games, and he really liked, I guess, the idea of the camera behind Lara Croft as she's doing her thing. And so he decided to implement that in his filmmaking, which is very interesting. And it makes me want to actually go back and watch these. I think the first one, it was like called Jerry, and it's with Matt Damon. But yeah, I want to check that out because I love the idea of someone taking a component of a video game, you know, something that they associate with a video game, and then they try to bring it into a movie that's not related to a video game. I think that's really cool. I'd like to see what that's all about. All right, what else? This thing, F-Zero on Game Boy Color. This might be the closest we get. Okay, so F-Zero was a real system seller for the SNES, while you could argue that the console didn't need another killer app when it has Super Mario World. The futuristic racer showed off its Mode 7 rotational prowess, arguably turned heads a lot more effectively as a result. Speaking of Mode 7, I came across a game called oh no, that's Super FX. Mode 7, Super FX were both Super Nintendo things, but were both different. Mode 7 was more about taking the the texture, the pixel art, and being able to like move it around. But the super effects was more about the polygons. Never mind. But anyway, there was a mech game called Vortex Super Effects. Anyway, with this, I think it's cool because of the way this looks. Like when I look at this, I am seeing Game Boy Color, and I feel like F-Zero would play really good. I might test this out. Yeah, free download with 200 likes, and I got 1,000, so I'll have to check that out later. Anyway, jumping to chat real quick. Ultronymous, good to see you. Rogue New Type, that's awesome. Midnight Hatter, good to see you all. Yeah, Marvel Ultimate Alliance 1 and 2, it has to. If they, I think that is the main thing they need to get out there because that's what everyone's going to be most excited about. Yeah, so hopefully they do that. All right. Oh yeah, that Hardcore Henry. Yeah, Doom and Hardcore Henry had those kind of like first person things going on. Yeah, that was pretty interesting. You know what? That's funny because I remember when Hardcore Henry came out, I like never watched it. I was like, I should get around to it. Never got around to it. And I actually did watch it not too long ago, and it was mostly forgettable. Oh well. All right, let's jump into news. It's getting hot in here. Let's see. Let me move down this here. See if there's anything interesting actually. Chance of Sonar gets the Game Award. That's neat because that's I see that on the Game Pass. When I'm looking at like the newer Game Pass, I just don't know what the game is. I'll have to check it out. Maybe French indie. Let's see. Okay. Nintendo says it wants to avoid Switch 2 scalping by making enough to meet demand. And I bet they're in a position where they can make enough to meet demand. That's what's really cool about this because I think they know how crazy a Switch 2 is going to sell. And I like the idea that people are going to be able to get it. I'm looking back to consoles that I didn't get when they released. One was the 360, or was it? I think with the 360, I think they had like 2 waves of pre-orders, and I think I got the second one. I forget how that worked. Well, I remember I think I got my brother a pre-order. I think my friend had an extra one or something. I forget how that worked. PS3, I forgot about the PS3. And then I think the PS4 and Xbox One I got right when it released. Wii U, I waited because it was like, what? Even Wii. I was just kind of like, Yeah, that's right. I remember because the Zelda game coming out on the Wii and they made it where it was motion controlled. And I'm like, no way. No way. And then when it came to the series, the Xbox Series and the PS5, I think I got the Series on release, but not the PS5. But then my brother had got a reservation come in and gave it to me. It's interesting how that works with consoles, right? So I think it's smart for Nintendo to like keep this in mind, but I think they can afford that because I would think even Microsoft and Sony might be like, how would our consoles sell? Especially considering how popular the PS4 still is for Sony. Okay, Arc System Works opens European branch. Well, that seems like a good idea. Arc System Works, a Guilty Gear, they do some really cool, more classic, some pixel artwork. But if they're opening a European branch, that must mean that they are succeeding in what they're doing. So that's great. George R. R. Martin appears to have teased an Elden Ring movie or TV adaptation. That would be cool. That way, I would actually maybe figure out what's going on. It would be hilarious if when you watch the show or the movie, there's barely any dialogue, maybe 30 seconds of it in the episode, and it's really just you watching the character explore and almost get murdered every second. And there's like no story reveal. That would be fun. Sega's Crazy Taxi reboot is a massively multiplayer driving game. So that's cool. So I think what we've heard is there's 2 Crazy Taxis coming out. One that's kind of like a quick, small budget sort of traditional Crazy Taxi, and then this other one's a massive multiplayer game, which I don't know what that would be like. And I am going to be pushing the camera because I'm so mad that its weight is like coming this way. I didn't ask for it to do that. Okay, that's cool if that's graphics from it. It just looks cool. It's funny how often Crazy Taxi has been coming up. Like I test Crazy Taxi usually when I use a Dreamcast emulator. Yesterday I found this weird video of an actual taxi painted and looked like the Crazy Taxi convertible, like driving up, and there's people inside like cosplaying as the characters. All right. Capcom makes animation production company. Minimum Studios, a subsidiary. Okay, so I wonder if they made the has worked on Resident Evil games and Dragon's Dogma 2. Oh, yeah, I'm interested about that. What do they mean, Dragon's maybe animation? Okay. So when I see animation production, I'm thinking cartoon, but it says Resident Evil games and Dragons, or like anime or something. Because yeah, yesterday on Netflix, I didn't watch it, but I saw there was the Onimusha anime or something. I didn't watch that. But yeah, that's neat. Capcom makes like shows of everything, but so I wonder if this is animation for the sake of video games and not VR, motion capture, movie, commercial. Oh, yeah. So I guess maybe just animation in general. Interesting. Okay. No, I don't want any of this. All right, let's see what else is going on. Watch new gameplay footage of Black Myth Wukong in 4K. Excited about this one coming out in August. PC get for sure. I'll get on PC. Going to chat real quick. Okay. I prefer when the market is flooded to prevent scalping over the stuff Bandai does, limiting purchases. Yeah, and I wonder. Yeah, I prefer that too. And I wonder how much like they really have control over that, because you just never know when something just doesn't sell, and then is like on the bargain bin forever, is on clearance. There was something recently. Well, I remember like with what's very interesting with the sequel trilogy, Star Wars trilogy, when that came out, they would make toys for the sequel movies. They would have waves, right, of the Star Wars stuff, and then it would have characters from sequels, and then characters from the old stuff. No one would buy sequel trilogy merch, which was crazy. Even like the newer Star Wars toys that are coming out are not like sequel trilogy stuff, and that was a dark time for actually collecting Star Wars action figures. So this was between Force Awakens and Rise of Skywalker, where then they even stopped making Rey figures because no one was buying them, even though like they had like the best engineering of the Rey action figures. And I guess that's why then they go to do stuff like Hasbro Pulse. Jada Toys has Next. Mattel has their own thing where it's like, because we don't know the demand, let's just sell direct to the consumer. Like Bandai does for Premium Bandai. It's just one of those things, like, think about it. Like, all these companies are competing over warehouse space, factory space, and then these companies have to then think about, okay, how much does it cost for the tooling? What factory is going to do this? How many are we going to make? How many are going to sell? How many are we going to do for retailers? How much is going to be direct distribution? And what I've seen, what's interesting that seems to work is the direct selling to the consumer, but straight from China. So, again, in the action figure realm here, what I notice these companies tend to do is that it's like a distributor will purposely buy direct from the company in China and then sell. What am I trying to say? But they don't do it. It's not like domestic, I guess what I'm trying to say. It's like it's cheaper for both parties if there's just a distributor in China helping distribute the stuff, instead of like a bigger company like Hasbro being like, hey, we're going to have distribution now, throughout America from the goods we get. Anyway, all that stuff, I've learned the logistics behind that stuff is so fascinating. Like the, speaking of video games, the Analog Pocket company, same kind of thing. They'll make a whole bunch, they'll get pre-orders, but what will happen is they'll only make a certain amount because it costs so much to make such a specific device. So then that might change now with the FPGA slim versions coming out. So pre-orders are the way to go. You don't have I guess that kind of was what I was saying. Like, make it where it's like, okay, this is something we're gonna make everyone. That's what Super 7 does. Super 7 does the same thing. And what's funny is Big Bad Toy Store will buy from Super 7 because if you go to Big Bad Toy Store, you'll see that they have Super 7 stuff on clearance. Because Big Bad Toy Store is not buying based on a demand. They're just like, okay, we're going to buy a bunch and then sell it. And it's very interesting how all that works, I got to say. I don't have problems with pre-orders, only stuff like limited releases and exclusive items behind a very expensive paywall. But sometimes the reason they are limited and exclusive is because it's like another way of doing pre-orders, where it's like they know it's going to be very limited. They know there might be a certain demand to a degree, but they don't know, what's end they're going to come out of that demand. Is it going to be where they have more than they need? Or is it going to be where everything sells out? It's like you just don't know, especially nowadays. Like considering Hollywood, like look at these movies how some movies do very well and then some just don't at all. It's like in this economy, we have no idea what's going on. Let's see if there's any other interesting news. Why are Japanese developers not undergoing mass layoffs? Because it's illegal. There. It's like it's more of there has to be and it makes sense. There has to be a justification, because like if people are being laid off, it's like, well, can't you redo things where and so I guess like if the justification is, well, like the CEO now only makes this much, and we're gonna have to let people go, but it's a neat thing that they do in Japan and they don't do here. That could be why American corporatism, consumerism is so powerful compared to the rest of the world. But is that even really a good thing? It's very interesting. Okay, and Ubisoft Toronto affected by a layoff. So we know Canada doesn't have that policy. Oh yeah, the Prince of Persia remake, The Sands of Time. Okay, Pal World's player count soars by 700% following new update. It's very interesting how this game just has the staying power. Compared to something like Helldivers 2, even though Helldivers 2 is doing great and has been doing great, it's seeing the kind of natural decline that these games have. But I think the difference with Pal World is that you can play by yourself and do so much by yourself. In terms of like, there's the base building, you have your world, whereas Helldivers 2, that's the thing about Helldivers 2, because you could play it by yourself, but once you do everything you can do, there's no, not much more you can do, whereas Pal World has a persistent world. So, I mean, it's very interesting. If developers want to be able to combine the best of what keeps people sticky with a multiplayer and a single-player game, they need to have like a world that a player has things they need to achieve in order to then like complete that world. But also, how can you keep that world then persistent? So even if the player has done everything they need to do, there's still more that can be done. I mean, that seems very broad, but I was actually thinking about this yesterday with a game idea I had, because as I was coming up with the idea in my head, I was like, well, now I'm just kind of saying the things that open world games just do anyway. How can I change that? What if in this game you could explore the world and there's actually no dangers, but it would then be limited in what you're actually doing? And I don't want to go into too many details, but I think there's an idea there. First Descendant has a more revealing outfit than Stellar Blade. Cool news article. I mean, I'm not complaining, but is that really a news article? You're going to get rewarded for reporting Tarkov cheaters. That reminds me of something. And it's something that Gundam Battle Operation 2 does very well. It's how people get into kind of the habit of like saying, good luck out there, good game, because there's like these quick commands. And I feel like that could be integrated more into games, like the ways in which you decide to communicate with other players, how that could affect gameplay. What if, that there's not only maybe buffs, but XP. I mean, something to make it where positive reinforcement sort of helps the players, makes people then, just like in real life, I'm going to get by doing things in a positive manner. What if somehow they're able to implement that into systems into multiplayer games? You know what? The top of this gun right here looks like a beam rifle. I think you guys know what I'm talking about. The little ribbed cabling. You know, Gundam fans. Let's see. Oh yeah, so a little update. Not that I like to get into this drama and stuff, but it's more of like kind of get to the facts because again, drama was the whole thing this whole time. But apparently, when whatever happened with Dr. Disrespect, he was actually reported. So for some reason that was left out. So then my whole thing is, why is this being brought back up again? He was reported. Everything was done that needed to be. But I guess why am I even needing to talk about it? So Snake Eater remake will have insanely detailed camo and healing systems. Yeah, the more I read about and hear about this game, the cooler it sounds, the quicker I need to get through the other ones. Could I beat every Metal Gear game before this one comes out? Let's see. Let's see. Some more layoffs, unfortunately. Xbox could be getting direct NVIDIA GeForce Now integration. That's amazing. Not only that, but now Xbox is on the Fire Stick TVs or the Fire Sticks in general. So if you just have an Amazon Fire thing, you can stream Xbox games. And then Xbox is going to have GeForce Now. This is good ideas just to make it easier for people to play a whole bunch of stuff that they want to play. Let's see. I mean, I had everything is a gamble, which is why Hollywood and gaming double down on remakes as equals. Yeah, that's why Japanese developers also don't have the bloated marketing in writing departments. So many good points there. It even does seem like, in a way, that, you know, there's this runaway effect that happens, I think, with American consumerism or whatever. When corporations see the money that could be made, then it just goes all out until it destroys itself. You know, and I've kind of, like, you could see that. I'll look like Disney Star Wars, for instance, and then I'll look at how Bandai treats Gundam. Like, there's so much respect with the Universal Century Gundam up until this point that Disney was not doing with Star Wars. I just want to take a moment to appreciate the lighting right now in this room. It just looks so good. It just worked out so well. Anyway, enough of that. So it is time for me to get out of here. Thanks all for joining and letting me just kind of get this stuff out. I love the insights you guys provide as I talk through this, because some points are brought up that I don't even think about. So anyway, that's it for today. Hope you guys have a good rest of the day, and we will talk tomorrow. See you all later.